Hi there, Susan Bach here, and welcome to another edition of Focus Friday. I'm delighted you're here. What I love about creating these weekly videos, podcasts for you is that it gives me an opportunity to share with you in a way that I'm not always able to do so in the written word. Also to give you some tips, tools, and practical techniques that you can use to immediately start impacting the results that you're receiving, not only in your business, but also in your life. Today, I'd like to share with you something that's very personal, makes me feel kind of vulnerable and a little bit uncomfortable, and that's okay, because I think it's important that I be this transparent with you. I was asked a question earlier this week by a colleague of mine. She said, just what exactly is your life and your business that you love so much? That was a great question. Thank you for asking that question, Jessica, because it gave me pause. Now, I am a master at having constant ongoing conversations in my own head, and sometimes they're brilliant, other times not so much. Sometimes it's my inner critic that takes over and rules the conversation. What I have found over the years is that when I am willing to have a different conversation with myself, when I am willing to perhaps get vulnerable and break through some barriers and take off some of the layers of protection that we all have, that I've created over the years, when I'm able to get to that place of honesty and openness is when I can start to have a very different conversation with myself. You may have heard me say many times that the most fascinating adventure of my life is the journey inward. Regardless of how many countries I travel to, that is still the case. The most fascinating journey I can take is the journey inward. Because there is so much more of me to be discovered, just like there is of you. To the question, what is it that I love so much about my business and my life right now? What I love is that I have created it. I have created my business from nothing. Now, there wasn't anything that was handed to me. I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I created this. And the creation came from passion. I was very passionate about wanting to make an impact in the world, about wanting to make a difference in my world, which is a small world. I did not want to be an internationally known best-selling author or have millions of people and followers. That's not what was important to me. What was important to me is to work with very committed, heart-centered entrepreneurs, women who wanted to have a business and a life they could love, who wanted to make an impact in their world, who wanted to create a comfortable living for themselves and their family. That's who I wanted to work with. And that was the solution that I wanted to offer is, yes, you can have a business and a life you love. After spending, I'll say about the first half of my life, trying to be someone or something that I wasn't, because I had no idea who I really was, I came from a point of desperation. I was desperate to find Susan. You might have seen the movie, Desperately Seeking Susan. Through a number of events that occurred in my life, I was at a pivotal moment. And it was time for me to go within, to have a very different conversation with myself, to start asking some different questions, to stop settling for less than what I wanted, and to start getting true and authentic with myself about who I really am and the difference that I wanted to make in the world and how I was going to make that difference. After trying to be someone I wasn't and trying to engage in behaviors and activities that were not aligned with me, that didn't come to me naturally or easily or effortlessly, nor did they give me the results I wanted, I had to get honest and look in the mirror and say, look, everything you've been doing isn't working. It's not giving you the results you want. In fact, it was just increasing the blood pressure, the stress. I was not a happy person. Part of that unhappiness was founded in a belief that I've had, an emotion, if you will, a sensation I've had from a very early age, and that's one of fear. I was very fearful of people, places, and things. What I also discovered at a very early age, even before I perhaps had a vocabulary to put around it, was that it was not okay to demonstrate that fear. That was not an acceptable behavior. So as my defense mechanisms, my ego, my protector kicked in, just like we all have, and that serves a very useful purpose, I built layers and layers around my fear. And that included justifying my behaviors, my actions, my decisions, all of which were fear-based. You getting the idea that perhaps that wasn't the, the best mindset to be making decisions from, but it was the only one I knew because fear was my constant companion. Let me fast forward when I started my own business. After having a very successful career in corporate America, I had two goals. Number one was to at least equal the income that I had earned in corporate America, nice, comfortable six-figure income, at least meet that or surpass it, and have the freedom to enjoy living my life. Because in corporate, there was very little time for freedom. It was a very high pressure, high demand, C-suite executive. It was intense. And I talked about some of the barriers that I created, I'll say the cloaking mechanisms that I created to cover up my fear, because demonstrating fear wasn't acceptable. So my personality then and my behaviors began to emerge around covering up the fear and yet still being able to function and being accepted. Because one of the things I was very fearful of was the fear of rejection. So I could very easily become a chameleon. I could match whatever I needed to match or imitate so that I would not be rejected, so that you would like me. Again, coming into my business, one of the things that I needed to do was have clients. If I'm going to have a successful business, I need to have clients. If I'm going to have clients, I need to sell. Well, EGADS, that just created a whole different conversation of my head, fear around selling. And again, to justify my fear, to camouflage my fear, I should say, I just said I wasn't very good at it, or I didn't like selling, or you can imagine the conversations go on, fill in the blank. The truth is, the reason I didn't like selling is because I was very fearful of being rejected. I was afraid that you would say no. So to avoid experiencing that rejection, I just didn't make the offer, or I did so infrequently that I had kind of this roller coaster income stream, which was not necessarily conducive to freedom, to having a business and a life I love. As the universe does so often for us, when the pain is so great, when we are so tired and weary of the struggle, is when we have the breakthrough. My breakthrough came in 2009. If you remember, we were just coming out of an economic recession. My business had tanked in 2008. I had no income, no prospects. It was not a pretty picture. And so you can imagine my fear was just everywhere. Fear of failure, fear of not being able to find clients, fear of economic insecurity, fear, fear, fear. So all of my decisions were coming from a point of fear and scarcity. That's not a high energy, very attractive space to be coming from. The moment of clarity, the breakthrough, the defining moment for me is when I was in the throes of the stress, the agony of not getting the results I want, of fear, and the recognition that it was fear that was preventing me from really stepping into all of who I could be. Fear of me owning my uniqueness. And I'll admit that I am unique, as I believe we all are, one of a kind. There's not another individual in the world, never has been, never will be, who is exactly like you. Our uniqueness is a combination of experience, education, opportunities. It's all of who we are. And when we are embracing our uniqueness, that puts us in the natural flow and alignment with a very high energy, high frequency emotion. It feels really good. So here I was, not being true to myself, trying to do everything that the experts so-called told me to do, not getting the results I wanted. This excellent chameleon over here, and the agony of thinking that all of these things I'm doing, this frenetic activity I'm engaged in, is not giving me a business and a life I love. When I could stop that crazy making behavior and thinking is when I could go within in calmness, without judgment, and see what was really going on. And what I discovered in that introspection is that fear was governing all of my decisions, including not really being able to make an offer. I was fearful of selling. I was afraid you would reject me, and I couldn't bear the rejection, and so I didn't make the offer. Well, as I said, not conducive to having a lucrative business. You need clients to have a constant stream of income. So I was at cross purposes. That created tremendous conflict. When I could acknowledge without judgment and yet with absolute clarity that fear had been my governing modus operandi, and make the decision that I did not want that to continue in my future. I did not want my past to dictate my future. I wanted to step out of fear. I wanted to say, no longer will you be my constant companion. I was miserable enough and stressed enough and so weary of the struggle that I could say it's time to go inward and do something differently. That's when I really came to grips with all of who I am and embraced my uniqueness. And that's when I started to build a business that worked for me, that was built around my uniqueness, that honored who all of who I am, idiosyncrasies, foibles, and all. That's when I also could begin to love my life, because I started to love me. I came to believe that I am enough. I am whole and complete. I have all the resources within me if I am willing to tap into it, into my higher self, my higher knowing, my higher purpose. And that was my pivotal moment. That's when everything shifted for me. That's when relationships with my husband improved significantly, now coming on 32 years of marriage. That's when the relationship with others changed, because the relationship with myself shifted. I became okay with who I am. And I came to appreciate the uniqueness of what I have to offer. And that's part of what I like to do with my clients today, is connect them with their uniqueness so that you too can have a business and a life you love. Now, what's the first step in this discovery? The first step is being honest, being vulnerable, trusting that you do have the ability to have the impact that you want to have and to attract clients without icky selling or sales promotions or being someone you're not. That you can, in fact, attract your clients by being who you are and living the solution that you want to offer. Because that's what's going to attract them. When you are aligned with your uniqueness and your marketing messages and your promotions are aligned with that uniqueness, it's not about selling. It's about having an impact and providing a solution to your ideal client, to the person that you want to work with, to the world that you want to have an impact in, regardless of how big or small your world is. This is your business and it's your life, not someone else's. It's yours. So my invitation to you today is, if you can, take the time to go within, to really connect with your uniqueness, to believe that yes, you can have a business and a life you love. You are deserving of having a business and a life you love. And you have both a capacity and the capability to have a business and a life you love. I hope you found some inspiration in this message today, perhaps some insight or awareness or an aha that will help shift you from who you are into more of who you will be, who you can be, more of who is within you. Embracing your uniqueness, owning it, and sharing your gifts with the world as only you can.